Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. After getting fired in my previous video and committing to a life of gaming, it turns out my girlfriend isn't quite as supportive as I had hoped. I've been busy mowing down hordes of zombies, but apparently saving the world isn't a real job. And I suppose a plumber isn't a real job either. So I've been forced to put my dock away and instead spend my time job hunting. And to prove that I'm making an effort, instead of that gaming handheld I had hooked up to the TV with my custom dock, I've replaced it with this lovely smart photo frame instead, to display pictures of me and my girlfriend together, to keep her happy, to let her know that she's loved, and that I'm looking for that job to help support us. Little does she know that the photo frame is actually a game console itself, with 15,000 games inside. So this is the Data Frog PS10. It's a 1280 by 800 IPS display that has two functions. It can function as a smart photo frame and show the weather and other information like that. But take out the controller and flip over into game mode and we have 15,000 retro games across lots of different systems. It comes with a micro SD card inside a full-size SD card adapter in the back here, but you can also add your own SD card up to 256 gigabytes in size. There is also a USB-C port as well, so you can charge this device from a power bank if you'd like to. I'm using the included power adapter here. There is a headphone jack which you could use to connect your headphones or other speakers. There is a USB-A port, which is already taken up by this wireless dongle, which by default is set up to these two PlayStation-style controllers. There is a simple power button if you have any issues and want to turn it on or off. There are a couple of mounting points if you'd like to hang it on the wall like a traditional photo frame. And there's also this circle here where you can add in the stand. It's really simple. You just line up the grooves and you can slide it one of two ways, either this way for horizontal placement or this way for vertical placement. And then if you want to take it out, you just move it diagonally and just pull it out. It's really, really simple. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to lie it flat on the table like this so I can film it easily and show you some of the games we can play. The controllers that it comes with are surprisingly not too bad. Compared to something like this really cheap knockoff PlayStation that I bought in the past, it came with these controllers which are so light, I don't know how they even function. And compared to something like this feels like noticeably better quality. Now don't get me wrong, it's still not very good, but if we compare the weight of the two devices, this PlayStation 1 style controller weighs 41 grams. This controller without any batteries inside weighs 93 grams, so more than double this. And once you add two AAA batteries inside, it weighs 117 grams, which is pretty much 3 times the weight of this. The buttons are also larger and feel a lot better. The L2 and R2 buttons are pretty spongy and clacky, and the analog sticks are not very precise. They seem to overshoot the movements you try to make. But they are functional, they do work, and they do feel pretty good. So I'm quite pleasantly surprised with the included controllers. But if you really don't want to use those controllers, you can turn the device over, whip that USB dongle out of the back, replace it with your own one, and then use something like the 8BitDo Ultimate, which is a far nicer controller. It should pretty much just start working right out of the box. And now we have a much more comfortable controller to play our games with. Now this is not perfect because I couldn't actually find a way to exit games once we were in them. This controller has the mode button, which is very useful for certain functions of the device, and it has basic RetroArch mapping, so select and start at the same time will quit out of whatever game you're playing. I wasn't able to find a way to get that working with the Ultimate controller, so for the sake of this review I will be sticking with the original controller, but if you would like to get your own working, you could configure it and play around with the settings, and I'm sure you could get it set up. So this could be a really nice little hidden photo frame gaming machine. But as I do find these controllers to be perfectly playable, I am going to use it for the rest of the review. Scrolling through the game library now, you will see how many games are in each system. There are 2,000 Game Boy Color games, 1,000 Game Boy Advance games, 15 Nintendo DS games, and you'll find most of the retro systems here are pretty stacked with games. A lot of the retro classics you might be accustomed to probably are in here, and one of the best things about it is how it's already completely set up with box art, screenshots, all of the correct titles. Everything is set up and just ready to jump into games. It's a really nice pre-set up machine. And being a pretty affordable, quite thin photo frame device, you're not going to get crazy performance out of this thing. Don't expect to be playing PlayStation 3 or secret console games. You can't even play PlayStation 2 games on this. This is really a retro machine. Now, there are a few more intensive systems included, like Dreamcast, but you are not really going to get good performance out of this. Let's jump into Crazy Taxi as an example. Jumping into Crazy Taxi here, it looks pretty bad, and the performance is also quite horrible. I'll put the frame rate counter on the screen right there, and you'll see it's around 29 frames per second, and it is somewhat playable, but this is definitely not a great experience. The audio is cutting quite a lot. Dreamcast definitely seems to be too tricky for this photo frame gaming machine. N64 is another one that unfortunately seems to be a little bit too tricky. I've added Pokemon Snap to my favorites, so it appears at the top of the screen right here. Here, Pokemon Snap is also unfortunately a pretty horrible experience. I mean, it is technically working, and it is quite novel to be playing a game from my childhood on a photo frame, but the performance is not really very good. It might look okay right now, but I tried this out a few days ago, and as the level progresses, it gets worse and worse until it's completely unplayable. You will see the cursor on the screen appearing, disappearing, changing from having a black background to no background. It's really glitching out. Oh, we're slowing down now. We're now in slow motion. Maybe we just don't want to wake up Snorlax. Shh. Pokemon Snap is a great game, but this is a cursed experience. We're getting particles flying all over the screen, the frame rate is dropping, the music is stopping. This is just an awful experience. So this photo frame does not seem to be able to be playing N64 games. I thought Nintendo DS could be really good on this thing, utilizing the touchscreen. I had an idea to go into the video options and change the screen orientation to vertical, and then to rotate this and use it this way. Unfortunately, it doesn't auto-rotate, so I'm not able to do that. And the touchscreen doesn't work in game mode. For whatever reason, the touchscreen works perfectly when using it as a photo frame, but the touchscreen is not supported when in gaming mode, which is really a shame. If anybody does know how to enable this, please let me know, because this could be really fun as a big DS device. But I did play a little bit of Pokemon Diamond and Pokemon Black on this, and the performance was okay. I seem to have lost my save file, unfortunately, but it did actually run at least okay. But let's now look at what this was really designed for, which is your retro games. Your Sega Mega Drive, your Game Boy Color, those kinds of retro games are going to run really nicely on here. So let's jump into my favorites, as I added a few as I was testing this over the last week or so. Something like tennis on the Game Boy is going to run really nicely here. As it is a Game Boy game, it doesn't have any color, but we can add some colorization to it by coming to the RetroArch settings, Core Options, Game Boy Colorization. So we can change this to the Game Boy Color colorization, which will give us some nice coloring like this. We could also change it to the Game Boy DMG for that really retro vibe. But my personal favorite for this game specifically is the Super Game Boy colorization. I think this looks really nice, and for anyone who hasn't tried this game, it's a really fun and quite difficult game. We can use the D-pad to play the game, or the analog stick, both are working well. But as I mentioned a little bit before, the analog stick is not particularly accurate, and it's quite easy to overshoot where you're aiming. So for these retro games, the D-pad is preferable. Oh, that's some tennis. Oh, it's like Wimbledon, with Mario in the umpire position. Older Pokemon games like Gold are going to work really nicely here as well, so you can get your old school Pokemon fix. Our plumber friend from earlier is working very nicely here too. And once again, for games like this, the controller is perfectly comfortable enough. Come back, especially when using the D-pad. The Mega Drive was one of my favorite consoles as a kid, so once again, feels a bit weird to be, 20, 30 years later now playing it on a photo frame, but it plays really nicely here. It's another great candidate for this. PlayStation 1 is quite playable. Here's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and it's running nicely. I'll just put the frame counter on the screen for you there. We're at a pretty solid 60 frames per second. Unfortunately, we're in a very dark area right now, but it is running nice and smooth. So if you wanted to play some PlayStation 1, it seems pretty doable here. Ow. PSP is also running pretty well here. I'm not sure how to get the frame counter on the screen here in PPSSPP, but it feels very nice and smooth, and it looks great on here. Those cel-shaded graphics are just beautiful. Once again, like all of the emulators, we can use the D-pad or the analog stick. They're both mapped in the same way, so you can pick your poison. Kamehameha! Nice! So if you'd like to play some PlayStation 1, some PSP, there are going to be some playable titles in there, and I'm sure there are also going to be some that really stress the system too much and aren't playable. It'll probably be a bit of a mixed bag, but if you do stick to those older systems like the Capcom arcade machines, the Famicom, the NES, the SNES, the Game Boy Color, all of those older, easier to emulate systems, you are going to have a fantastic time. So coming in at around $80, it's not the cheapest thing out there, but when you consider that it also functions as a really nice smart photo frame that can display the weather around your house, you can hang it on the wall, you can display it in many different ways, I think it has its own niche. So maybe the next time you're going to pick up yet another handheld to add to your growing collection, maybe consider trying something a little bit different. And if you would like to pick this up, I'll leave an affiliate link in the description, but I would recommend you get your own games because I don't really agree with systems that come preloaded with games like this. So please supply your own games by yourself, legally, and have fun playing on a smart photo frame that has a lot more purpose than most gaming systems out there. And if anybody is interested in that custom Retroid Pocket Flip 2 dock I am making, it's kind of a front end for something like this, or this, or this, or this. Basically put the ugly stuff behind the TV and have something nice and pretty at the front you can easily slide your console in and out of. So if you are interested, I will be adding that to my Etsy store soon. Thanks for watching, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.